You're all good, Chef.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to the world. Today is a very special podcast because we are doing a Freestyle Monday du jour. And we have two amazing co-hosts, but also mentees. We have the Phoenix Warrior, Noreen. We have the Dragon Warrior, Isaiah. And these are two young Jedis. And these Jedis are going into hyperspace, into the world of wherever their life journey is going to take them to. And since I am the Yoda Dragon Chef here, I'm just going to give some insights, some insights that this is a masterclass. This is what the X factor is of what it takes to be successful, but also to be an amazing manager and an amazing leader, where when you mentor your teams, they're going to love you. And some managers are going to be jealous of you because why? Your co-workers go, why do you like Chef Noreen or Chef Isaiah? I said, well, you got to be human. So for me, I am just going to go with Noreen, and any questions you have, then Isaiah, and we could just have it a nice chat session. So we have 30 minutes where we are going around the world and we are going to power the mindset of you.
All right. So it's really, it was kismet that we're doing this topic today because I attended a webinar when I was at work earlier it was about data sovereignty. And there were a lot of things that the panelists were talking about that I felt like applied to managing people, because it was a lot about community research. And something that they said over and over again was listening to people, wholeheartedly listening to your team, to your, the participants in studies and all of that, but also meeting people where they are. So I guess I was thinking about that a lot and was wondering what that looks like to meet people where they are as a manager of a team. And I don't know if Chef Lam, if you have anything specific that you can point out on how you can meet people where they are, but I just thought that was really interesting and something I will remember.
Well, you know what? Think about the workplace, and I'll use sports as an example. In sports, you have a certain amount of time, certain amount of practice, and actually you have games. And games is live. You either win or you either lose. At work, there are budgets, there are overtimes, and you got to work within the budget. And this is where the challenge comes for a first-time manager. And now you're managing a group of co-workers, genders, diversities, different age. And now your voice has to be clear, it has to be firm, and it has to be confident, where your team suddenly hears these words and understand what's happening. So one way in sports is about conditioning, right? There's on-game conditioning and off-game conditioning. So you have to help your co-workers of how can they be their best when they come into work. And I always use the 4 principle: body, mind, spirit, and food. Develop it however you want to, where you are able to come into work and become A+. So whether you're working in this industry, whether you're working in front of the house or working in the back of the house, or if you're working in a white-collar office, at the end of the day, you're dealing with a voice. You're dealing with a person that is asking you or requesting for something from you. So from your end, this is where your voice, your mind, your body has to be A+, meaning it has to have this originality, authentic So when they talk to you, they hear you, they go, I spoke to a real person. And right there and then, that person's going to know, wow, I'm talking to a human being that is talking to me who I am, what's at stake. So you use words that they understand. Everyone understands time management. Everybody could do an amazing job in their position. Like I was saying, whether you're in front of the house, the back of the house, or you're on the phone. Everyone knows what to do, and it's called guest satisfaction. And I always say, for you to give A+ customer service, it starts within you. If you are this person that the headlines, whatever's out there, and it doesn't move you in the wrong way, guess what happens when you go to work? You are going to be humble. You are going to be grounded. And when you talk to your co-workers, they're going to go, wow, this person's voice is so calm and collective. And they're going to go, I want to work for this person, because this person is going to lead me into environment culture where I am going to perform and I'm going to make mistakes, but I am going to improve along the way. So that would be my, my comments for you there, Noreen.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I love that, Chef. And I love how you mentioned being personable as a manager, and having authenticity and really caring about that person. And I think it's so important as a manager to do that and get to know your employees and truly care about them on a personal level. Because this creates very much employee loyalty and high employee satisfaction. So I guess one of my questions would be is, as a manager, what steps can you take to do this? What are some steps that you could do on a daily basis to make sure that your employees are doing okay? What questions can you ask them? How can you connect with them on a personal level? Because I've seen so many managers in places I've worked at where it's a very toxic environment. All the employees are talking crap about the managers are talking crap about the employees, very toxic. Nobody likes this certain manager because of this reason. She just focused on the numbers and the money, and not about how the people feel. She's yelling at the managers, and it's very toxic, and it's like you don't want to go to work and you feel uncomfortable there and you can't perform at your best, and it leads to bad habits. Because when you're feeling that way about yourself and you're having those emotions, you start going into the drugs, the drinking, to cope with all the emotions that you're feeling. So in a way, your manager has an effect on your personal life. So what are some steps that, a manager could take, and why should they care so much about their employees?
Well, think about when you're a manager, right? There's a fine line between a co-worker and crossing that line, and now you're into that person's space. And that's something I always learn and remember, because, there's a relationship and partnership that the manager is teaching you. And one, you don't want to take advantage of the coworker, and the coworker doesn't want to take advantage of the manager. So that's where you come in, and you talk about, think about, we all have bad days, right? The environment culture is very toxic right now. We can't change that. So what can we change is body, mind, spirit, and food. And it's always about, when you come in, did you look like a gentleman? A female, does she look like a lady? I mean, that right there has a very powerful meaning. And if they don't understand that, then that's where you come in and you just kind of give some tips, hey, for a guy, have a great haircut, show that beautiful face that you have, you're wearing whatever your dress code is. It's just like, as a chef, I'm wearing this white jacket, and this white jacket has a lot of power. I don it, it makes me feel like Superman. So one way, I don't want to wear this jacket and suddenly, I can't feel it because I have pride. So basic things, common sense things that, are critical to make that individual person. Because guess what? When you go to school, the professors, the faculties, no one's going to tell you if you look like Chef Boyardee or suddenly you look skinny, They're just going to call your name and say, oh, Did you do your homework? That's it. You know, are you in class today? I mean, I am going where my eyes tells me something. And you as a manager, remember, your eyes tells a story. It tells a story of where that person is coming from. And you got to find out and think about mental health. That's a great manager. You're not trying to go in there and saying, "Oh, what's going on?" You're trying to say, well, you're at work. It affects our community. It affects our team. So for you, it's saying things, and the more you speak and have a dialogue with different people, different genders, different cultures, you are really going to be this amazing manager. And for me, that's why, you know, when I became a manager, sure, was it challenging? Absolutely. But guess what? I kept opening my mouth and I kept talking to my coworkers. And eventually I'm like, all right, this is my management style right here. You know, you need discipline, you need structure, but you need freestyle where they feel like, wow, my manager's letting me breathe. And also, if I have a hiccup, my manager's going to give me a glass of water and go, hey, here you go. So just small gestures. But here's this, you have that one day. So think about 8 hours at work. You have 8 hours to show who you are to your team. You don't wait till day 2, day 3, because day 2, day 3 could be a hell show. So for me, it's right up front. And coworkers, they want someone that is a straight shooter.
And I'm just gonna add on to what you said. Actually, I had an example yesterday at work where it was one of those things where I got thrown into the fire and I had to be tested. I was at a bar, and the bartender that was there had to go to a different bar, and I'm a bar back. I'm not even a bartender, but I had to bartend the whole bar the whole night all by myself. So I truly got tested, and I truly got thrown into the fire. It was Father's Day, so it was very busy. So I was really tested. And when you're tested like that, you see really a good manager versus a bad manager. So I was able to see that the manager that was there, although he wasn't educated on most of the drinks, he was there for my support, and he was there to support me. And the whole way along the way, he was there to kind of guide me. So you're able to really tell who cares and who doesn't. And it really shows, you know, a good manager versus someone that's not good. And like you said, Chef, if I wasn't conditioned mentally, if I wasn't in the proper physical shape to handle the stress of being just thrown into the fire, I would have crashed. So I think being conditioned, having the balance of the mind, body, spirit, and soul going into it with a strong mentality. Okay, I may not know this, but we're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna do it. And we're gonna push through regardless. Is super important, and that's developed by having a good, like you said, mentor and a good manager that cares. And when you truly have that, I think you could be successful. And sometimes you never know when the day's gonna come where you're gonna be tested. So being able to withstand the test, and kind of like your journey with cancer, you never know when it's gonna come. So just being prepared and having the knowledge to know, okay, if it does happen, what can I do to make the situation better, and you know, get myself out of the situation is the best thing to do. And I think by educating yourself, having knowledge, and really listening to those that care and truly care is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually brings to mind something my dad says to me all the time growing up, and it's something I live by until this day, which is hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So you have a good mindset, you keep a positive mindset, and you are looking for the things that lift you during the day, but that shouldn't push aside the preparedness that you should have for the day that you go to, the week, the month, because you don't know what's going to happen. And so I feel like that really reminded me what you said, Isaiah, of that, you know, being prepared and having that positive mindset, and just taking things as they go, you know. And I've heard a lot of rhetoric from workers that, like, you don't leave a bad job, you leave a bad manager. And so a manager can make a big difference in the daily life for a team, not just in their mindset, but their success as well, and keeping your employees for a long time. So I'm just loving that we're having this conversation, because I think it's really important. And I think a lot of people want to go into management, and they take on the role without thinking it through in terms of preparedness. And there's no such thing as being 100% prepared for a novel thing in your life, but you know, doing what you can to find mentors and have experiences and do the learning to get you to a place where you have a strong mindset. Like Chef Lamb always says, it's so powerful, body, mind, spirit, and food. Get yourself to a strong place so that, you know, you can show people what to do. Instead of just telling all the time with that big voice, you have to lead by action as well.
Yeah.
So,
And I think another part of that is being approachable. As a manager, a lot of times people are scared to talk to the managers because, you know, they're the big boss, you know, nobody wants to talk to them. They're very scared. I think as a manager, if you're not approachable, then you can't be successful as a business because your employees have to be able to go up to you and be able to ask you questions at free will, you know. And a lot of managers, that's a stupid question, you know, all this stuff. But really, no question is a stupid question. It's important to ask for guidance and seek that help from your manager. And you shouldn't have a fear of talking to your manager. So I think being approachable is another key factor that I've seen in managers that I had that have been able to guide me and help me out is very, very important to be approachable. So I think that's definitely a key factor in that area. And then Chef Lamb, to your point, you're talking about body, mind, and soul with food. Chef Boyardee's, I think another reason why we have Chef Boyardee's and people that don't really care about what they eat is because of what they feed us during family meal is so important. And as a manager, what you have during family meal shows how much you care about your employees. You know, if you just give them the scraps, you just give them the, you know, leftover fried chicken from the other night, you just put whatever in the fridge, pasta, it's kind of like you don't really care. And if you don't really care, then they're not going to really care. So I think putting thought into, you know, family meal, actually sitting down as a group and eating together, you know, talking and eating, and it just makes the environment so much better. And as a manager, you should be a part of that. And I feel like if you are, you'll be more connected with them, and it's just overall a better environment. So I think that's super important as well. What are I guess from your experience, Chef Lamb, what are your thoughts? I know you worked at the Ritz-Carlton as, you know, a cafeteria employee. What are your thoughts on how does it make a difference when the food is good versus the food is bad? How does that affect the moods of the employees?
Well, you know what I learned is everyone should start off cooking for your coworkers. And the reason why is you have to put love, you have to put dedication, you have to put patience, you have to put pride. And if you don't, when they eat it, they're going to put it in the trash, and then suddenly they're going to roast you, and they're going to give you some great names. Okay. So for me, you know, we're in the hospitality service, and hospitality service is you give your love to others. And that is something that you're pleasing others. That's what that's what we do. And we have a gift that we practice, whether it's in the kitchen or whether it's with our words. And to me, the industry, there are problems that just happens, and there's no manual that tells you, okay, what page am I gonna look for this problem? It's really about looking and seeing what happened, and there's a guest, and the guest is pretty much peed off. And right now, you gotta know how to calm that guest. So for me, it's really beautiful because when you use the right words and you say, you know, I want to come back here next time, it's on us, or, you know, here's a complimentary dessert or whatever, and that's it. And they will smile and they'll remember you, like, whoa, you know, they didn't make it into this, you know, snowball effect that suddenly now you got to, like, oh my God, now you got to write a report, and now the general manager has to get involved. And, you know, so for me, it's really know how to talk to people. And I think right now, people don't know how to talk to each other. It's more the authority voice, like, hey, I'm your boss, or whatever, or this is what it is. And for you, you have the opportunity to change this. And that is the beauty of both your journey. The question is, how do you handle it? You know, that is the beauty of this right here. And from there, you are going to make your own mistakes, or you go, oh, I like this I like this approach right here, because when you become a manager, there's time management. And that's something that you really got to learn really fast. You can't be having a speech that's going to be, half an hour. It has to be in 1 minute. So think about 1 minute. You got to tell your team in 1 minute what we did amazing and what we need to kind of like clean up and make sure that, we do the job that what we're capable of doing. So that's what I would share with you, Isaiah, on that question.
Thank you, Chef.
Awesome. So, Chef, I wanted to ask, so what's your favorite part about being a manager? Like, what is it that when you come in and you're managing a team that really like gives you that power, that motivation, that elation that you're like, this was awesome. I love doing this.
I got a great story. Being a manager of a union operation versus non-union. And you always hear that union employees are very difficult to work with because there's a book and they're playing by the book. And you can't say certain things because the playbook says this. So, I realized that the union and you need to be a partnership. You're one. And if you come out and say, hey, you know what? We got a task today. And you communicate it, you clearly, and you're there to show and tell. That's one thing, right? Show and tell meaning whatever that person on that team needs to do, whether it's the hot side or cold side. And now you give examples. So to me, it's really saying, hey, I'm here to make sure that you enjoy your role. And this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to have fun doing it. And the next thing, that person says, hey, Chef, I got it, man. Bye-bye. Go to the next person. You know what I mean? Then they will kick you out like, hey, I got this already, So because that's what they want, right? They want to kick you out of their space and do their thing. And to me, that's really, that's really cool. So it's like having training wheels on. If you need training wheels on, I'm going to give you the training wheels. I'm going to be there. But if you don't need it, then it's cool. So I think that depends on you right there. And that depends on how great and how fast you could have someone's trust. That's the hardest thing to do, is having someone's trust. And it's not saying you're a bad manager or a good manager. No, I'm here to manage our team. We have a goal, we have deadlines, and we're doing it together, because if we don't, then we got to deal with consequences. So it's telling, the rewards and consequences.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up trust, because I think trust is a really big part of any relationship, any interpersonal relationship. And when we talk about building a relationship with your team, as a manager, trust is a big part of it. For you to be approachable, your team has to trust you enough that they can come to you with a problem or a comment, or trust the training and all of that. So I think trust is really important, and it can take time to cultivate, and I think that shies some people away. Can seem intimidating to build trust with a team, but it's super valuable. Super valuable. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think another important part for a manager to have is to kind of they need to know how to put their ego to the side in a way, and because a lot of managers have a huge ego, and they really don't know how to put it to the side when it comes to, if an employee comes to them with a problem or anything that somebody under them might say, they kind of put their feelings above the employee's feelings because they're in a higher position. But I think it's important as a manager to kind of sit back and just listen sometimes. Sometimes you just got to sit back, listen to what your employees have to say. And when you do that, you open up the door to, like Chef Lam said, trust. And when an employee could trust you, there's like nothing greater than that. Because when you have that mutual trust between an employee and an employer, they'll likely have more integrity when they work for you. They'll likely be able to when there's a problem, come to you. They'll likely be able to ask you for advice. They'll like so many things come out of putting that ego to the side. And I know it could be tough as a manager, but it is extremely important. So I guess Chef Lamb, is there a time where you had to put the ego aside as a manager and kind of just sit back and say, okay, let me just sit, listen, and then let's resolve this together?
Well, you know what? You're always gonna have disgruntled employee. And to me, the most challenge would be is when someone cooks and they're doing something in their eyes, they think, oh, this is amazing. But then in your eyes, you're like, no, it's unacceptable. And now you just hurt someone's feeling where you're saying, sorry, but that's not our standard. Now you're going to teach them in a way like, but then I realized he was never taught from the first time. So in kitchen, that's where you get a lot of great habits and you get a lot of bad habits because that person never was taught the correct technique, methods, and preparation. And to me, that's what I learned, because that's where manager comes in and say, no, that's not unacceptable. Let's me show you what our standards are. And that's it. You know what I mean? And it speaks for itself, It's like you're tasting and you have them go, hey, do you understand this? Then they go, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? Because cooking is very sensitive and there's a lot of emotion and a lot of people do put their best foot forward, but not everyone gets proper training and development. So that's something that I learned, like, okay, so for me as a manager is always right away, orientation, let the whole team know this is what it's about, and they get it right there and then.
Yeah, I love that point on how you said guide them through, and I love that example that you use when they cook something and it's not up to standards. Okay, let me show you why it's not up to standards. Let me coach you through this. Taste this. This is how it's supposed to taste. This is how it tastes. And it gets them thinking. It gets them excited instead of just honing them down, saying, "Oh, this is horrible." Throw on plates, throw on pots. That does nothing besides make them, startled. And the food come out worse. So I think having that coaching process and really taking the time and letting them think and say, okay, how do you think this should taste? Taste the flavors. Think about this. Think about that. That's so much more of a positive way to do it, and it has a greater effect than the other way to do it. So I love your point on that, Chef. Thank you.
Yeah, I think as a manager, when you walk in, you set the tone for the team. And it's important to think about how you're setting the tone with the way you talk to your team members, and when a mistake or a challenge comes up, how you address that. Like Chef Lamb says, yeah, you can throw plates and, have a tantrum in the middle of the kitchen, but what is that going to accomplish? And what kind of tone and example are you setting for your team? So I guess my question for you, Chef Lamb, what are things that you like to do to set the tone in your workspace when you come in and lead a team, if there's anything specific you like to implement?
Well, think about when you wear the white jacket. I mean, when your body's conditioned, your mind is clear, your spirit is just warrior, and the food, it's amazing. So it's a presence, it is a presence that you teach people. And this is something that I really love. Like, we all have different cultures, and all different cultures have amazing essence of the love of the food, but it's showing and telling. And our industry is an amazing industry, because you work with people from all over the world. And now the question is, can you develop them? Because to me, any individual could be from a manager to a general manager to a president to an owner. That's my belief. And the reason why I believe in that is you got to mentor them to be mentees. And then from a mentee, they will become a mentor. And then the confidence and self-esteem will actually kick in place. So that, to me, is the key to success in our industry.
Yeah, I definitely love how you mentioned that. And also, I want to kind of ask you and comment on, in your book, it says to become like water. And as a manager, I believe that's a very, very important thing to do, to become like water, to be able to be fluid and fit into, as you now kind of mentioned, fit into any situation. Because water molds into whatever environment that it's in, and it ends up working. So I guess as a manager in a super stressful situation where things are not going right, nobody's, kind of cooperating. How do you become like water in that situation? How do you keep your head straight? How do you, go from going crazy? What's the key or secret to that?
Well, the secret is it's outside of work. What are your hobbies? I love Mother Nature. I love the sand. I love the ocean. I love the forest. I love music. I love museums. I love art. I love cooking. I love martial arts. I love sports. So all these activities, it teaches you because you watch, right? And you watch players perform, and it teaches you there's nothing to stress about. There's nothing, no heart attack mode. So once you stiff and think about what water does, right? If you suddenly, tense up, water could drown you. And suddenly you lose your mental thought. And the next thing, guess what happened? You're 86. So for me, it's understanding the body, the mind, and spirit. And for you, that's where, you learn, think about yoga, meditation. There are so many levels of how to balance it. And this is where I come in with my own freestyle. I was a DJ. So I love music from different different age group. And to me, I just created my own medicine that works for me. But then I share this with my team. I share this with my coworkers. I share this with my colleagues, because I'm saying, hey, can you consider this? So it's so easy, because it's like garbage in, garbage out. That's it. Don't let it be an atomic bomb and suddenly does something that's so destructive that it's going to do some serious damage.
Exactly.
I love that. Yeah, with the freestyle lifestyle, a lot of it does come from outside of work and outside of your what you're doing to make money. Like, who are you outside of that? Have you taken the time to figure out who you are, what you stand for, your stressors, your calming, activity, and practicing those things consistently can give you that base of that presence that you were talking about, Chef Lamb, and being able to pivot at any moment, regardless of what the challenges or challenges are that day. I love that.
Mm-hmm. So we have about like 5 minutes left. So Chef Lamb, in these next 5 minutes, what is the best piece of advice that you have for young people that aspire to be in manager positions, that aspire to have that, that title as manager and lead others, and they're young, they're ambitious, and they really don't know nothing. What is the best few pieces of advice that you have for them?
I gotta say, I'm the chef author of The Dragon Turns to Water. Chef Jeremy Lamb fights cancer with a freestyle lifestyle. It's the best investment, and reading is power. So the title could, turn you off, but you just mentioned, as a manager, you have to learn how to manage a crisis. And it starts from the bottom and it's going to go all the way to the top. And they're all the same. If you really think about it, they're all the same approach. So for me, reading is power. It is so beautiful. So to me, that's what I would say to the young generations. Read, because what we're sharing today is a solution into the world of all the problems that they have. They're having the same problem, in the Middle East and Asia and Europe, in this country, in Africa. So, the face and gender might be different, but still the same problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of like history kind of repeats itself. You need to take a step back and look at what has happened before, and how can we change, and how can we improve from here. So I think in the kitchen and wherever, as a manager, you got to look at that too. Look at, okay, what worked, what didn't work. Okay, how can we fix it for next time? take suggestions. That's super critical and super important as a manager. And I think that'll really lead your team in your kitchen and wherever you are as a manager to success. So I think looking back, taking another turn for it is super important. Noreen, do you have any ending thoughts on managers? The best advice that you have?
Man, Chef Lamb said it. If you haven't read that book and you're listening to this podcast, you need to go read that book, because I've been an avid reader my whole life. It was my favorite activity growing up. Still something I really enjoy doing. And that book changed my mindset. And I think we don't emphasize how much mindset can really make a difference in your life, who you are, and the way you deal with people. And at the end of the day, remember, when you're standing in front of someone, you're talking to a human being. And you are also a human being. And just remembering that and making that connection person to person can take you very, very far. A hello when you walk into your workplace to everyone can take you very far. So it's little things that can really build that trust and relationships that we're talking about, manager to team.
Mhm. Yeah, and I got to second you on that, Noreen and Chef Lamb. Definitely the book is a good knowledge is power, and your attitude will definitely determine your altitude. So I think reading that book is super powerful. Me, myself, I'm not a reader, but I love learning and I love reading. So I love like learning about things so I can become better. So I think reading that book has definitely, like you said, Noreen, been able to change my mindset and really guide me and help me along the way. So Chef Lamb, I really appreciate you taking the time and effort to share your story, because a lot of people, they go through things and they don't share their story, and they don't realize how much sharing your story could really impact somebody else and impact the life of others. So it means a lot to not only us, but to everybody that that has read your book. So it means a lot, and it shows the type of person that you are, that you want your experience to change others so they could become better. So definitely encourage everyone to take a second and just read, day by day. Even if it's 10 minutes, take a minute and read and educate yourself and really become knowledgeable. I think it's super important. So we have about a minute left. Chef Lamb, do you want to wrap it up?
Well, you know what? The best thing about this podcast, because this is a freestyle Monday du jour. So it's pretty much that's what life really is. We don't have an outline. We didn't go through like, okay, what are you going to say? What we're going to talk about? This is about you, about our viewers around the world, and how they could have a strong mindset with their confidence and self-esteem. And once that kicks in, then, because the body, mind, spirit, it's so beautiful and it's so easy. That's the beautiful thing about it. You let it breathe, you let it see, you let it feel. It falls in place like water. And that's the whole thing. We have essence that we were born